Hi, I'm here today with Mary Tabor, Executive Director of the Pastoral Counseling Centers of Massachusetts. Thank you for helping me with the cheat sheet. And Russ Surveyor, who's a psychotherapist at the same organization. Thank you for joining us today. Wanted to talk about specifically, it's a very broad sort of field to talk about, but I want to talk about the consequences for family members trying to help or live with people who are struggling with alcoholism or drug abuse, whether it's a spouse, a parent, a sibling, or a child. And maybe a little bit about what resources are available, including the Pastoral Centers, Counseling Centers of Massachusetts as a resource. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely,
Pleasure.
we're glad you asked, and are happy to spread the word that there is hope and there are resources. And I think the one thing that Russ and I were talking about is the most profound consequence of addictions is for young children when they're being formed and growing up, and to have what they need is stability and security and love and trust, and to have that thrown aside with addictive behaviors that cause the opposite.
Sure.
Unreliability and
then the counterpoint is on the family system level. Addiction is just simply disruptive to the family in all kinds of ways. So it's not. So we're not focusing just on, let's say, an addictive parent, but an addictive child can be a tremendous disruption to the family. So the whole family suffers as well. You know.
No, absolutely, and I think it's one of the aspects, if you will, about alcoholism and drug addiction that doesn't get talked about very much. Is just how disruptive and destructive it can be toward family members as a unit and individually.
Sure.
Because you're trying, as either a spouse or a child, to come up with effective strategies for dealing with people who are struggling that way, and maybe don't even acknowledge it. And how do you deal with that? Or you're a sibling of somebody, and how do you?
well, for one thing, speaking of a sibling, it takes all the attention in a system, in a family.
Sure.
And therefore, just from that alone, others in the system lose out, maybe siblings or younger siblings or whatever, because it's like a sickness that everybody focuses on because it throws the system. Don't know what to do or how to handle things, and takes a lot of energy and time. And so right there, it is hard for those in the system, just because it takes all the time and energy. And beyond that, there aren't any easy answers for somebody that behaved a certain way and then is not behaving that way, whether it's a parent or a teen or otherwise. Whoever presents as one person one time when they're sober and another way when they're not. And it's very disorienting, destabilizing, confusing, and hard to address, hard to deal with, particularly if you're a child.
And it's made more complicated by the emotion of love, because if the person who's the addict is someone you love, either a child, a spouse, or whatever, then the love wants to somehow help or
Fix it.
or do something like that. And what you find is that the addict has to make the change. And until that happens, even people who very much love the person can't do very much. And that's true for us as therapists as well. When I work with people who have addictive problems, I'm really clear with them right from the beginning that I have no special skill here, and that unless they are really suffering the consequences of their addictive behavior, and they know that, then there won't be a motivation to make a change, And that's on top of the fact that changing, as Mary has said before, because of the brain, the effects on the brain of addictive substances, changing is hard. When people try to abstain from abstinences, the brain actually pulls them back into into the substances because it's already accommodated to the presence of the substance. So it's a very tricky problem.
And before the cameras started rolling, we were talking a little bit, and that's been one of the
Right.
the challenges for me to accept that and to learn that it's a physiological brain
is.
function as opposed to just a series of bad decisions.
Right.
It's hard for everybody to think that. Everybody who's involved at the family or friend level, the loved one level, you think,
Right.
why does
Hard to
so-and-so
understand that.
just not do this? Or why don't they
Right.
take our help and do this? Or do what so-and-so?
Can't they see the consequences?
Yeah.
Can't you see
Yeah.
what?
It's very
you're doing?
hard to
And that's an important
realize.
point too, because initially people don't see the consequences. Initially people, and that's especially true for young people who believe that they're invincible, and that if I take this drug or use this substance that I'm on top of this, and they don't really understand that in the long run it will be on top of them, and it will control their behavior. But they can't foresee that. So
They might even foresee just the opposite. I'll be cute or clever or smarter
that's
or
true,
more
that's true.
comfortable or
That's true.
whatever.
So
Yeah.
the consequences for family members, depression, what do you see most often? I mean, resentment, anger, depression, they all sort of
Well, if you think
roll
of
together.
let's start with children, for example. Children need safety, stability, consistency, good parenting, all that
Trust.
type of thing. If all that gets disrupted, especially if one of the parents is addicted. So in general, if we look at the child, we're saying that the safe environment that's needed to bring up and raise up healthy children gets disrupted,
Sure.
If we're looking at a spouse, then you're looking at actually a competing lover, if you want to put it that way.
Sure.
And so the spouse is not getting the kind of support and dependability and reliability that they need from their partner. Not to mention the way in which addictive behavior can also disrupt the flow of love between two people.
Sure.
And,
So they're
it creates the opposite of what is needed, as
Right.
in distrust,
right,
anger,
Sure.
hurt,
hurt, acting out because of that.
right, right.
It's a very hard thing.
So for family members, how, first of all, they should go talk to somebody or go find resources that help them.
Absolutely.
Right.
To
Absolutely, to get the
And some
support.
of those resources, one I know is your organization.
Right.
It's very helpful we also, in addition to doing individual therapy, we also run some groups as they fill on whatever is needed, actually. But there's also Al-Anon, and there's NAMI, which is National Alliance for Mental Illness, that runs support groups for families. So that might include children and adults
Okay.
of the person who has a mental illness tied in with the drug abuse, which is often the case. Often people are self-medicating when they have a mental illness, and that leads to abuse, drug
Okay,
abuse.
Sure.
And so NAMI is another resource of family support,
Oh, okay.
which is very good. But
I know Learn to Cope has been one of the, I've heard about that, and we're going to have somebody from Learn to Cope on the program at some point. But I guess the important part for me is that people understand that if you're in that position, you do need some help
Yes,
and
you
support.
And going back to what Russ shared about not being able to help a person that isn't in the place of wanting help, it's about getting support from others and perhaps even experiencing tough love. If it's, say, a parent with a child or a teenager who's addicted, or a 20 or 30-year-old addiction, and the parents are beside themselves because that person has come home because they've lost their job, they've lost their relationship, whatever, and they're back in their aging parents' home who are thrown completely by the situation. And it's very helpful to have a support system, and maybe even after a certain time of loving them and getting nowhere, of having to do tough love.
Well, and that
Say, you have to go find yourself or be out in the street or whatever it takes, because unless you're willing to be in that place of helping yourself, I can't help you.
And again, one of the things that the 12-step programs, places like things like AA or Al-Anon and so forth will say is that until the addict suffers the consequences of their own behavior, they're usually not motivated to change because there's nothing driving them to do that. And although people they care about may be encouraging them and so forth, it's not happening inside them yet. And so that's where the tough love piece is very important. But that's painful to do. In other words, how do you as a parent set limits with a child? You love the child and you don't want the child to be in further difficulty, but you may have to protect yourself in some ways from the child's behavior. And that's
pretty
very
hard.
difficult. That's very hard.
Which is why you need help.
Yes.
At that point. You need some sort of support, guidance. How do you talk to how do you make that decision?
Right.
What's the difference between enabling and helping becomes a real
That's a great
issue, too.
distinction. That's
Yes.
a great distinction, sure.
It's hard to realize that one is enabling. I was just driving him or her to such and such, or I was just
Right.
getting them a haircut, or
Right.
paying for their food, whatever.
Right.
But when you're in the place of no help coming from the person who's addicted, any piece of that is enabling. It prevents them from realizing the consequences.
And going back to what you were asking before is what's available in for example, the counseling center. Mary was talking about the groups we do. We do individual therapy, we do couples therapy, we do family therapy, and so on. So there are a variety of interventions, and someone can meet us on any of those levels, and as the clinician, we sort of decide or work with them and try to discern what is the most useful thing to do, and then go accordingly. We also are happy to refer people to 12-step programs, either the addict themselves to a 12-step program, or the people who are connected to the addict to something like Al-Anon, which is a program that is 12-step oriented and is a collection of people who are dealing with exactly the same thing, loving somebody who is an addict.
So, I'm sorry to say we have to wrap up this segment, but what's important to me is getting people to understand they need help.
Right.
And there is some help available. So take the first step and get that help, whether it's contacting
ideas.
you or Al-Anon, whatever. I think that is so important. So thank you for coming and sharing that.
And spreading the word too, just like this show is doing.
Well, that's true. I mean, if you're watching this and you're not in that position, but you know somebody who is, suggest to them that they need to. And your facility, your counseling center, would be one of the places that they could call to get some ideas. That's
absolutely.
great.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm here today with Bhavna from Bhavna's Wellness Group. Thank you for coming and joining us. I want to talk about a number of things, and then we're going to do a Reiki demonstration. You're going to treat me, and God knows I need to be treated. Just to let people know a little bit about what's involved, but you do a lot beyond Reiki.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about what you do and how you got started.
So thank you for having me on this show. And it's a unique experience of doing this. And I got into this by chance. Actually, with my profession, I'm MBA with banking and finance background. And I got into this with an auto accident and trying to heal myself. And the right side went into almost one time. I was rushed into ER with a paralytic, couldn't move, and I used to be a dancer and everything.
Oh, wow.
And then I healed myself with that. But I use Reiki as one of my tools.
Okay.
And I'm also a community health advocate, patient navigator. I've done a couple of certifications from Boston University in understanding depression and helping seniors and adults in going through things in their lives, and even young adults as well.
Okay, well, that's quite a leap in some ways from being an MBA to all that, and then an automobile accident that changes your life and changes
Exactly.
your whole perspective.
Exactly. It's
Wow.
like it brings me into thinking, why am I here for?
Sure.
And it shifted me. I was already in the community serving with, you know, the nonprofits and working in the Indian society, being the cultural chair, very much involved in that, but then shifting to a broader level of understanding, like there's so many people suffering in pain because I went through it myself. I went through physical therapy and came out on crutches.
Sure.
You know, so I was like, there has to be something which is going to get me pain-free and make me better and give me the energy to go through my day and not feel exhausted and tired first thing in the morning when you wake up being in pain, and then you're dragging yourself through the day and feeling sad and like, oh my God, and I have to work.
Sure.
Right? So I connected with that and I said, I need to shift that. I want to feel alive. I want to be able to live my life every day, every moment feeling great. And I want to help others. And you know,
Reiki is one of the tools. that you use
Reiki
to
is
use
one
that.
of the tools, and then I also do meditations. I do workshops, helping people shifting their mindsets, negative mindsets,
Right.
not the positive one. You know, I can also do for people with touching or not touching and distantly. So
Okay.
you could be at home and be in pain and be like, Bhavna, texting me or on call or email me, and I can just set up a time and I can send you energy.
Oh, wow.
And-
Okay, great.
And,
Well,
and let me explain a little bit so you have an
Sure.
understand what Reiki and how it works.
Sure.
It's just like a cell phone, just the way the cell phone works
okay.
energetically. So if I call you on your cell phone, you can hear me at that same moment in time, you know, because
Okay.
the electromagnetic waves travel through
Oh,
the
okay.
satellite system and goes to yours,
So it's,
and it
it's
picks
built
up.
around electromagnetic.
So it's the
waves.
same concept. So when you could be at your home and I could be at my office, I could send energy from here and you are the one receiving it, not anybody else.
Oh, interesting.
So that's, you are the other phone and I am this phone.
Okay.
So we connect through the energy with the electromagnetic waves, but there's no satellite in between.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's show people so that they get a better idea.
Perfect, let's do that.
Great.
So with your permission, if you're okay, can I touch
Sure.
and do that? So there's two ways of doing it. I don't have to necessarily touch. Okay. So, but I want you to feel when I touch, it's bringing your focus back in there.
Okay.
Okay. So sometimes people like to be, you know, because your mind is running at 100 miles an hour.
Sure.
So it's bringing that focus, and then I'm going to take my hands off, but there'll still be energy.
Okay.
Okay. While touching, you can also feel my hands go warm or cold.
Okay.
So you could be talking with me, you could be at home doing your work, at work doing your work.
Oh,
You could be doing anything, but you will slowly feel, because this can be done distantly as well, so you will slowly start to feel more calmer, less stressed, and you can get to be more focused.
Well, that's interesting because my inclination was, okay, I'm being treated, so I must be quiet,
No,
which is not easy for me, as some of my friends will tell you.
exactly, no, but by the end of it, sometimes people actually, I talk to people and they want to talk and I allow them, but they end up being the whole day feeling much more positive and calmer.
Okay.
Because you don't want to shift people in what they are or who they are,
Sure.
but you just want them to be much more calmer, stress-free.
Okay.
Okay, and that's what we're focusing on, releasing the stress you're holding in your head. Because that's where your, you know, the mind takes care of your body.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
your head has all the nerves going down from your head to your entire body. I'm going to come to your shoulders, because shoulder is the next place apart from the neck where people hurt the most or they have the tightness. Because it could be sometimes your posture, it could be your way of work, you know, or it could just be the stress, the emotional stress you have from maybe your partner or sleeping.
Your role in this is to gather electromagnetic energy and have it flow between you and me? Is that
Exactly. So I'm just a conduit of bringing that energy, which is the positive. I'm in tuned into the positive energy. So now I'm just going to go and work on your neck and your brain, which is right here. It's not me or my energy, but it is the universal energy which is flowing. I call it the positive energy
okay?
in the universe, and I'm just in tuned into that. The way I teach it is, and I do my sessions, is because of my background and having that analytical mind with the MBA
Sure.
coming in, is trying to understand how it works in the body. As I worked on you for just a few minutes, as you know, you can see, how do you feel?
Well, I feel good, you know, and I think part of that is for me, and maybe it's the energy. It's also a focus
Exactly.
of trying to, okay, let's take a couple of minutes here and be still.
Right.
You know, sort of in some sense like centering prayer does for me sometimes, or imaging. So this is another way of bringing energy in a different way.
Right. So what I just did for you is I just sent energy, and now I'm going to just do a clearing. So when I do sessions on people, that's my unique style. Not everybody does it my way. You know, it's the way you are taught. But I created my my own unique style of understanding what the energy is doing and what I need to be doing for people to help them. So I've been practicing for many years now.
Sure.
You know. So what I'm going to do is clear you, okay, and then I'm going to balance you. So that what balancing is doing is grounding that energy inside of you, so that the whole day you're going to stay focused in whatever you want to do.
That sounds good.
Not have a headache.
That sounds very good. I live with a headache. That's just right.
Okay, so you can understand. You see, I have my bracelets and my bangles, so you know I'm a dancer. So I love to move, because the dance is a form of where you move energy and it brings joy into people.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So a similar, like you feel happy, you're moving that air. So the air around us, which is made up by our emotions, I call it the emotional body, with the stress can get heavier.
Okay.
So I actually shifted with the beautiful positive energy of Reiki, and I cleared it up, bringing light around you as well. So you're not stuck in the stressful energy. You know, it's just like having a bubble around you of light.
Like an aura?
Yes, which is like a simple term. That's why I said bubble. You know, aura, everybody doesn't get it. So it could be an aura if you understand that. If not, it's like a bubble around you, which could be made with, you know, stressful energies coming from your thoughts or your experiences with people. So if somebody said, or you are having a hard day, or somebody said, you're not doing good today, or you're not good, so now you've got this energy from someone, which is like, and it keeps echoing in your head, and you feel sad about it, and not feel good enough. It's not just in your head, it's around your head, and puts that pressure. So people who are stressed, you'll see their posture being like that.
Sure.
You know, instead of being like happy but if you are stressed, the whole body mechanism changes. Your face changes. Like when people come to me, they come all stressed and the face is entirely different. But when they leave, they're so much calmer and actually smiling and laughing, and they leave.
That's right. And Reiki means, in Japanese, the meaning of that
The
is
life energy force.
Life energy force. Okay.
Exactly. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
Super.
so it's helping. So now I just cleared you. I'm going to balance you. So anchor this energy into you, so you're all balanced for the entire day.
I have friends who would suggest that balancing me will be quite an effort.
No, it's understanding that I'm just grounding this energy.
Sure.
And it's helping you to be more of you. I'm not shifting who you are as a person. I'm just helping you to be more wonderful you.
Well, this has been great, because I think it demonstrates to people another approach that's worth trying. And people have a different view or no idea of what Reiki is.
Exactly.
So they're like, well, that's something that's done, behind a tent someplace, and not the case at all.
No, and it can be done distantly. I have people all over the world I work on distantly.
Oh, that's great.
You
And we'll be showing your contact information at the bottom of the screen.
Yes.
And encourage somebody to give you a try if they're feeling
Definitely.
stressed, and we all are. So.
Yes, they can definitely reach me at my email address, which is my first name, Bhavna, Bhavna, and my last name, Srivastava, at bhwellnessgroup.com.
That's great. Well, thank you for coming and showing us.
Oh, thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much. And we'll be back soon. Hoping that we treat everybody today with respect, tolerance, and kindness. Thanks for joining us. Till next time.